Welcome to the Fascia-Informed Therapist, the essential podcast for occupational therapy professionals looking to deepen their understanding of fascia's pivotal role in therapy and health. I'm your host, Amy Mayer, an experienced occupational therapist, practice owner, and dedicated educator. Here we'll dive into the fascinating world of fascia, exploring its significance in the human body and its critical influence on occupational therapy practice. Each episode will bring you cutting-edge insights, expert interviews, and practical strategies to help you confidently integrate the science of fascia into your therapeutic approach. Whether you're a seasoned practitioner or just starting out, our goal is to equip you with high-quality, evidence-based, and fascia-informed continuing education opportunities that will enhance your skills and benefit your clients. So join us as we unravel the complexities of fascia and transform the way you practice occupational therapy. All health and wellness practitioners are welcome. Let's learn, grow, and evolve together. Hi, this is Amy, and this is another edition of the Fascia-Informed Therapist. And today we'll be talking about wearable devices and should we be recommending them to our clients who have posture concerns. I have a couple studies I'm going to run through and then share some thoughts on that I have on wearables and how they've been part of my practice. And to start with, I think there's plenty of evidence that posture should be something that we're looking at if we are practicing in a fascia-informed manner. We know that posture affects the activity of the fibroblasts, and when we take ourselves in a less than ideal posture over time against gravity, the fibroblasts are going to have to increase the tension in the fascial system in order to help us remain up against gravity in a way that our bodies really weren't meant to be for long periods of time. Now, of course, no posture is bad posture. It's only when we assume certain postures over long periods of time that they start to thicken up the fascia, even shorten the tissues, muscle and fascial tissue, and then start to limit range of motion. And then eventually it's very difficult to move back into an upright posture against gravity because our fascia has gotten too tight and sticky. And of course, the good news is that's changeable for most people with a little effort and some time. Nudging into those tight spaces, we can often move back into them, but it's only with very purposeful, intentional activity that we can do that. But we can re-inform the fibroblasts of what to do and to recreate our fascia. But again, it takes time and consistent effort. So you've probably seen there's lots of different kinds of devices out there, and there's everything from the wearables, the digital wearables that we're talking about today, to the kinds of devices that you strap around your shoulders and then Velcro over your rib cage, and then you can pull on some things to really tighten them up to pull your shoulders back. And that's not what we're talking about today. And I definitely have opinions on those, and I don't particularly care for them. And Caitlin and I had Caitlin put one on and we made a kind of a cute little video. So that's out there on the Mayor Wellness YouTube channel. And people are using them. They're all over the marketplace. And I think I don't like them because they are passive. They're passive devices that, yes, they can give you cues and they can start to help your brain sort of re-feel like what upright posture feels like, but it certainly doesn't help your muscles realign and do the work that needs to be done in order to hold the body upright. So is it a good idea? And then the other concern I would have is often the strap goes underneath the armpit – and across the front of the shoulder. And I think that's sort of a ripe environment if you're falling into that, especially if you're strapping it up too tight, to put a lot of pressure on the nerves that run through there and the circulatory structures, and potentially cause a whole different kind of problem. Now, that said, I do have a client who uses one and she feels it's been very helpful to her. So to each their own. Took some time to educate her on what to be careful of and to make sure she's not using it as a passive support and she's working with the device rather than just leaning into it and letting the device do all the work. So anyway, it's not what we're talking about today. We're talking about wearable, these little compact devices that you can either put on a necklace and hang them down the upper back, or you can actually stick them to your skin. That's what we're talking about, and that they give real-time feedback when someone strays from the target alignment. And these are really about creating more awareness of what's happening in your body, and it's a much more active correction, which is why I think it's a better option. Now, they also are typically more expensive than some of those strap yourself in sort of posture correctors. So it's much more dynamic, and I think from a lot of different angles, muscular, fascial, neuro, it's all, I think, a better way to go overall. So let's see. We're going to go through a few different studies, and the first one is a 2020 study in the Journal of Applied Psychophysiology and Biofeedback. And the title of the study is Effective Posture Feedback Training on Health. So they're taking an overall look at how this might affect health. We already know that, as I said, that there's a lot of consequences to less than ideal posture over time, and that can be both to physical health and mental health. And then we can go in the reverse too. Both physical health and mental health can have an effect on posture, which then can have an effect on the body over time. So it's important to look at. Okay, so back to the study. So the purpose of the study, to examine whether a wearable posture feedback device, they specifically looked at a device called the Upright. Could that device improve self-reported health outcomes? They investigated effects on posture awareness, pain, mood, and general well-being, and compared outcomes between participants using the device and matched non-treatment control groups. So it's a small study. They only had 26 undergraduate students, and so chances are these young people are probably pretty healthy. They had 13 in the treatment group and 13 in the control, and the intervention duration was for 4 weeks. They had to wear the Upright posture device for at least 15 minutes a day, and I couldn't find if they took an average or how they monitored that, or if it was just I did it for at least 15 minutes a day. That's not very long, but it might be long enough to create some realization of, whoa, my posture's not as great as I thought it was. And actually, let's take a little side trip here. I had a client that purchased one, thought it would be good for her, asked me about it, then went and purchased one, and came back in. I helped her set it up. And when she came back to her next visit, probably about a month later, she was like, I can't believe how much I deviate from an upright posture during so many different activities. And I can't remember now if she wore it all day long or if she just wore it parts of the day, but I know she wore it doing laundry, doing cooking, and lots and lots of daily activities. And she was not a person who was particularly sedentary. She did not work outside the home, and retired, I believe, and but very, very busy person, doesn't sit a lot. And then let's backtrack just a little bit here too with how you, if you're not familiar with these devices, kind of how they work. So the device is generally connected to your phone. Hers was anyway. They can buzz on their own as well, but they're connected to the phone, and you can use the phone to then set up the parameters. So in her case, her device was, we put it on her, and then we worked together to find her the most upright and comfortable posture for her, because we don't want somebody pushing into pain all day long, right? So the most upright and comfortable posture for her, and then you set that in the device. You tell the device, this is where I want to be. And then you have an option to how far out of that alignment, how many degrees out of that alignment do you go before the device gives you feedback. So you don't really want just a few degrees. You don't want your body being in one perfect alignment all day long. So you can set it for degrees outside of it, and then you also set it for time. So you don't want it buzzing at you every time you reach for something or stoop down to get something, or rather, if you're sort of drifting out of that and staying out of upright posture, that's when you want it to give you feedback. So you could choose 5 seconds, 10 seconds, and this was a while ago, so I do not recall exactly what we set it for, but I want to say maybe it was 10 seconds. So if she drifts out of that sort of unknowingly for 5 seconds, however many degrees we decided on, then it would give her feedback. And she was shocked at how much she drifted out throughout the day. Okay, back to the study. Back to the study. So the subjects actually reported qualitative feedback on experiences, and that's how they collected their data. So their conclusions were that the treatment group showed significant improvements in physical functioning, emotional well-being, energy and fatigue levels, confidence. I'm sure I've talked about Amy Cuddy's research on here at some point, and the power poses. And then overall success ratings. And they reported greater awareness of neck and back posture and improved self-perceived alignment. So they thought they were doing better. The study suggests that wearable biofeedback devices can be effective tools to increase posture awareness and enhance general well-being, and offers preliminary support for using wearable posture devices as a simple, accessible intervention to promote better posture and consequently better health. All right, let's talk about the next study. This is a 2019 study in the Journal of Gait and Posture, and it is called Immediate Effects of Real-Time Postural Biofeedback on Spinal Posture, Muscle Activity, and Perceived Pain Severity in Adults with Neck Pain. So the purpose of this study to investigate immediate effects of a commercially available wearable real-time postural feedback device, and they don't particularly say the brand here, on spinal posture, muscle activity, and perceived pain sensitivity, focusing specifically on adults with chronic or recurrent non-specific neck pain. So they used 21 adults, so small study again, who had recurrent neck pain for greater than 3 months, aggravated by prolonged computer use. So what they did is they had every participant, so each one of those 21 people, completed a 1-hour typing task twice. And I don't have the information in front of me of did they bring them back? Did they do it back to back? I would assume they did not do it back to back, because that would definitely be poor design. But they each completed a 1-hour typing task twice, once with the wearable biofeedback device on and once without the device. Then they measured spinal posture angles, head tilt, neck flexion, cervical and thoracic curvature, and muscle activity. So they measured the muscle activity in the cervical erector spinae, upper trapezius, and the thoracic erector spinae, and self-reported pain in the neck and shoulders over time. Now, this is kind of interesting results. So they say significant improvements with biofeedback, reducing neck flexion and a more upright cervical thoracic angle. Decrease activation of the cervical erector spinae muscles, but they do not say that it decreased activation in the others. Pain perceptions, the biofeedback did not immediately reduce pain, but pain increased less during the typing task compared to the no device condition. Okay. Real-time posture feedback devices may help improve and reduce muscle strain. So essentially, both groups had pain during their typing tasks, and they really didn't find a big difference between pain from one to the other. But where my head goes is they didn't really mention the computer keyboard setup and the amount of reach they had to have, which would have, if they didn't have decreased activation in the upper traps that they were also measuring, then I wonder if they were reaching maybe too far. I don't know. That's something that studies should make you ask questions, right? And think about the results. So anyway, the interesting piece is that it did help reduce some muscle activation when they were more upright, which makes perfect sense. And I would wonder if over time, then they might have less problems. And they don't talk about, stretch breaks and all that kind of stuff too. Nothing ever is in isolation, right? There's always layers to the problem, and there's always layers to the answer to the problem. Now here's another study. It's actually done by the same group of researchers, and it's a 2021 study, and this is in the International Journal of Environmental Research and Public Health. It's called Sitting Posture During Prolonged Computer Typing with and Without a Wearable Biofeedback Sensor. So they're investigating whether the wearable biofeedback sensor could help computer users maintain an upright posture during prolonged typing tasks. So they used, same group, I don't know if they were the same young 21 healthy adults, but they're using the same model where they had each participant complete a 1-hour typing task, and one with the wearable device on and one without. So this time they used a 3-dimensional motion analysis system to monitor sagittal spinal alignment, focusing on neck flexion, thoracic kyphosis, and pelvic tilt. So definitely different measures here. Their conclusions: wearing the posture device, the biofeedback device, led to statistically significant improvements in posture, decreased neck flexion, reduced thoracic kyphosis, and improved pelvic alignment. They suggest that wearing posture sensors can actively assist users in maintaining a healthier upright position during extended periods of desk work. And the device using real-time feedback may be especially beneficial for computer users or sedentary workers, reducing the risk of posture-related discomfort or spinal pain. So the last study I have for you is a 2024 study, and it is from a journal called Sensors, which is I looked that up, an international peer-reviewed open access journal on the science of technology and sensors. And this study is called Wearables for Monitoring and Postural Feedback in the Work Context, a Scoping Review. So they looked at 12 different studies that involved over 300 participants across different work settings from healthcare to construction, and examined what types of wearable sensors were used to monitor posture and provide corrective feedback. Let's see, they analyzed studies from 2000 to 2023. Most included studies used 1 or 2 sensors, commonly accelerometers or inertial measurement units. They're typically worn on the upper back or shoulders or lower spine to detect trunk or pelvic alignment. Let's see, the feedback was delivered via real-time vibration, sounds, or visual cues. And they stated that haptic feedback, like a buzz or vibration, when the posture deviates, was the most frequently used and preferred method because it's more discreet. And some of them did use visual or screen-based feedback, and that seemed to be way more disruptive in the work environment. So here's the outcomes. The study reported that posture wearables help users maintain and improve alignment during work tasks. Some devices were custom-built prototypes, while others were commercially available. While long-term outcomes were not always tracked, short-term improvements in spinal alignment and postural control were common findings in the studies that they looked at. So what does this tell us? So it seems like the studies out there aren't huge, but when they did this review, it looked like there were some commonalities that we can definitely take some cues from, no pun intended, that we can use to help our clients. So I don't know about you all out there, no matter what work environment what sort of therapeutic environment you are working in, whether it's something like mine where you're primarily working with people with pain, or it could be, I know we've got some people working in the mental health arena listening. So no matter what arena you're working in, posture should be something that maybe you don't assess it deeply, but it definitely can be a key player in their experience of pain. And at least talking to them about it, if you're not actively giving them feedback and treating them, assessing and treating them for it. So if you've got someone who is chronically slouching or in misalignment, and their body isn't, their body is capable of doing something different, then talking to them about this as a potential option definitely, I think, is a very reasonable thing to do, given especially the outcomes of these studies. They can guide us in saying, yeah, there's some studies out there. They're not huge and awesome, but they're pointing in the direction of this could be helpful for you. But again, I think everybody is an N of one. Everybody is an N of one. So talking to them about it, talking to them about the type of feedback that the device gives, and what I was talking about earlier when I helped my clients set theirs, and the sort of looking for something that gives the subtle feedback rather than something that's going to startle them or disrupt the environment or stop what they're doing. Those are definitely better. And it also, I think, it cues the body in a way that it's a very active change and can start shifting the interoceptive cues, awareness of when someone is slouching or way out of an alignment that's going to probably be better for them. So it draws their attention inward to self-assess and self-correct. Now the studies, couple of the studies and a lot of the studies, well, they all were, I think, very work-focused. But we know not everybody everybody works outside the home. I see plenty of people who do not work outside the home, or they work at home. But anyway, if they're sedentary, this could potentially be very beneficial for them, especially if they're at their desk pretty much all day long. But I think it would also be really good for people who work in jobs, a baker, a cook, daycare, anybody who's leaning forward, teachers. Oh my gosh, I've had some kindergarten teachers who, yeah, they could definitely benefit from these. And they're going to be moving in and out of those forward postures all day long. But maybe rather than setting it for 10 seconds out of alignment, maybe they might benefit more from, okay, you've got to do a stretch in the opposite direction to counterbalance all the forward stuff that you're doing. It might be a completely different setup for people like that, or somebody who's a cook or a baker. They're going to be forward a lot, but you've got to counterbalance with a stretch in the opposite direction. I would also suggest that we counsel our clients that this should be a short-term fix, not a long-term thing. That you're really stressing the educational component and the inner awareness component, and you're building a body that is very comfortable in that upright position. And I found for myself and for a lot of the clients that I work with, once you can achieve that upright position, it feels really good and really comfortable and sustainable. And I remember, I don't know if I've ever told this story, but many years ago when I was taking a yoga class, and it was like a 4-day long class. I don't remember which one it was now. I can picture the environment, but I can't remember the rest of it. But they had us sitting in a circle in the middle of this huge room, and we were sitting on the floor, and there was nothing to lean your back against. We were sitting upright for 4 days on this floor. And of course we were intermittently doing yoga and stuff too, but there were long periods of time and I was like, oh my God, how am I gonna do this? But now I can sit on the floor all day long and not have a problem. And I know plenty of different postures I can choose, but my body feels like I can sustain, especially that upright spine and head stacked for long periods of time. And of course with some movement in there, but encouraged. It's a short term, it's something to pay attention. It's a habit change and not a long-term thing. And I've actually thought about getting one in my practice that I can either lend out or even rent out to clients to use, because I would assume if you buy one and you work at it, and then it's going to go in a drawer, right? And not get used. But I don't know. Some people might pull it out again down the line if they have sort of a, like the same thing when you start eating healthier and then you sort of backslide, and then you gotta start over. And maybe not completely over, but I don't know if that's your life, but that's mine sometimes. Anyway, let's see. Is there anything else I wanted to say? Yeah, it's not a cure-all, but it's definitely something that can really be a good, helpful support system. And that's the feedback that I've gotten from clients that I know and have worked with that have used them. I've really only helped, I think, 2 clients set them up. And I definitely recommend that you offer that, because people don't always know when they're in the most ideal posture against gravity, the most sustainable posture that our body is most efficient when we're in it. So, okay, so thank you again for listening. I appreciate all of you. I would encourage you to go to fascia-informed.com and make sure you're on our community email list, and I will talk to you next week. Thank you so much. Thank you for tuning in to the Fascia-Informed Therapist. It's been a pleasure sharing insights and strategies to help you integrate fascia science into your practice. I'm Amy Mayer, and I hope today's episode has inspired you to explore further and take your therapeutic skills to the next level. Remember, we're committed to creating and providing top-notch, evidence-based, fascia-informed continuing education that empowers you as an occupational therapy practitioner. Stay connected with us for more enriching content, and don't forget to check out our online courses to deepen your expertise. Until next time, keep expanding your knowledge, refining your skills, and confidently applying the science of fascia to your practice. Here's to advancing together in health and wellness.